May 3rd is going to be an unveiling of a plaque, historical marker here in J Pack. There's a sheet in the back that has all the
Newark. In the New Jersey room, and our day answer the questions about Newark and New Jersey history. Part of our mission is helping the archive to the library. So William spent a lot of time that I was reading on the book. And he pictures here in the book with the collection. So we are delighted to have this opportunity to help host this event for us. William Peniston, William J. Peniston, was the librarian of New York for 25 years, in the mid-1990s. The native Oregonian natural home, he was the second because of the book. Here the piece that he showed up Africa. It is my distinct honor to be here, speaker with any extension.
Day.
We will have a great call.
Can you advance this? There we go. Tom Antner, Greg Gadurian, Zach Cohen, and Vanessa Castaldo are all currently in the New Jersey Information Center. And they have been wonderful colleagues and good friends. Paige Prattnell, who was here earlier today, there she is. She went out and she went over and beyond the call of duty by scanning all of the images for this book. And I am very grateful for their assistance. This is not Could we go to the next slide? Shall I just say next? Okay, in 2013, Wilma, known as Wilma Gray, Bunny Gray, shown here as a young librarian from Stax, and Heidi Kramer, gave me the opportunity to work with the Newark Public Library's archives, known as the Librariana. It is from this collection that these photographs come, and it was during that year and a half that I became very aware of the remarkable history of this institution. I'm glad to be able to share that knowledge with you tonight. Next slide, there we go. Ever since Reverend Abraham Pearson of Bradford, Connecticut, brought his collection of 400 books to Newark in 1666, Newark has had libraries. At first attached to churches and schools, these private libraries catered to specific audiences for specific purposes. They were not open to the public. The first subscription library, known as the Newark Library Society, was founded in 1797, and it was attached to a debating society. It charged in 1821, Moses Brooks, a leading tanner and shoe manufacturer, established a library. Has attracted more attention elsewhere or caused more favorable comment than its almost unanimous vote for a free public library. Next. The mayor at the time was a former principal and later became a postmaster, Joseph Haynes. And he immediately appointed a board of trustees. It consisted of the superintendent of schools, William Barringer, after whom the high school is named, J. Franklin Ford, a lawyer and a politician who later became governor of New Jersey. He's to the far right. Spencer Goebel, a prominent insurance businessman and another civic leader. He's top left. George Gurry, another lawyer active in politics, bottom left. And Frederick Teese, another lawyer and politician who's in the middle there. Samuel McDonald, a scholar, lawyer, and city councilman, is not pictured here. These men, and they were all men at that time, supported the library by establishing policies, by advocating for funds, by approving expenditures, and most importantly, they hired a competent professional librarian. Let me see if this works. Next, here we go. The first librarian was a graduate of Dartmouth College, Franklin Pierce Hill, known as Frank. He began his library career in Lowell, Massachusetts, and he was also the first librarian at the Peniston Public Library, which I said was the first public library in the state. He was hired to be the librarian here at the Newark Public Library in 1888. He started work in 1889, and he resigned in 1901. He finished his career as the librarian at the Brooklyn Public Library. He immediately set about hiring the staff, selecting volumes from the defunct library, Newark Library Association, which was another subscription library. His staff cataloged the books. Nonfiction books were made available to the public in open browsable stacks. The Newark Public Library was the third library in the country to do that. He set aside specifically designed areas for women and for children, and he bought books in foreign languages for immigrants. Finally, he distributed books by horse-drawn carriage, because this was before the automobile, to schools, firehouses, and other delivery stations throughout the city. Next slide, please. Next slide. I don't know. Here we go. The original library was located in this building on West Park Street. However, as the collection grew, and more importantly, as the circulation grew, this building quickly became too small. And so Hill began planning and overseeing the construction of the grand palace-style building on Washington Street. This building, which we are gathered in, has been the headquarters of the Newark Public Library for over a century. And here are just a few postcards of the main library. I love the horse-drawn carriages in the upper two postcards, and the addition of the trolley in the second one adds an interesting touch. As far as the one in the lower right, well, what was good for General Motors is good for the Newark Public Library. The second director of the library was John Cotton Dana, and he expanded the outreach of the library in multiple ways. In addition to books for all citizens, young and old, native born and immigrant, he established 9 branches in the city's neighborhoods. A brilliant promoter of the library, he once said that libraries were a means for elevating and refining taste, for giving greater efficiency to every worker, for diffusing sound principles of social and political action, and furnishing intellectual culture to all. They were, in his opinion, indispensable for an advanced industrial democracy. Over the other leaders were to follow Hill and Dana, but I will not go into them in detail. You'll have to get the book for that. The photograph on the left is the main reading room, now since Heading Hall, and that is taken after the renovations and the expansion of the main building in the 1950s. Just note the drop ceiling with fluorescent bulbs, demonstrating that not all improvements were really improvements. The photograph on the right is of a librarian who is working to convert the old card catalog into machine-readable records. This was during the technological changes that took place in the 1970s and 1980s. This is a sweeping overview of the history of the Newark Public Library. And like most institutional histories, it is a top-down analysis, giving almost all of the credit to the directors. But I wanted to give equal time to the staff, since the staff were and are indispensable to the remarkable achievements of any institution, but particularly of this library. They are the ones who acquire books, catalog them, and repair them. They are the ones who develop outreach services and build outstanding collections. Both of these topics, services and collections, are the subject of the third and fourth chapters. Chapter 2 on the staff was a rather difficult chapter to write, but I did find a nice collection of snapshots from the early 1940s. Anna Gordon, top left, started out as a clerk at the age of 16 and worked with periodicals, business information, and reference sources. Eventually, she became the chief librarian for the lending and reference department. She retired in 1955 after 43 years of service. Bottom left is a photograph of Zelda Norcross. Here she is searching a thick volume for an answer to a reference question from the patron. Bottom middle is the former librarian at Barrington High School, Emma Alberta Grady, and she came to the Newark Public Library to be in charge of adult services. Esther Lerner, in the large photograph to the right, was a war refugee. She took a job as a clerk in the library when she first arrived in this country, and she and her husband later relocated to Buffalo. In this photograph of 1909, 4 library assistants relaxed in the restroom. After all, the hardworking staff of the Newark Public Library deserves a break from time to time. And from its very beginning, a special room was set aside for them. But notice how they relax. They're reading books. The trouble with this chapter on the staff is that it was hard to separate the staff from the services that they provide and the collections that they build. And as I said, these 2 aspects of the library's history form the topics of chapters 3 and 4. But before I move on to those subjects, I also want to note that as I finished this chapter on the staff, I thought I should do a chapter on the patrons. Most of those photographs, however, are anonymous, and most of them, the photographs that is, are indistinguishable from the documentation from services and collections. Nevertheless, here are a few examples. Here is a young boy with a book. It is entitled My Newark Story. It is an activity book produced by the Newark Public Library with funds provided by the Carnegie Corporation of New York, and it was all about the Great Migration built upon the information in the library's collections. Here is a young girl who is smaller than the book she is reading. And these 2 images really allow me to say a few things about children's services. In 1898, when the library was still in the West Park Street building, Clara Whitehill Hunt was a librarian specializing she was specially trained in children's services. And she set aside a special area for children, and she helped plan this children's room in the new building that opened in 1901. Later in the 1920s, each city-owned branch had a special room for the children on the top floor. The Newark Public Library has had a long and sustained commitment to programs such as story hours, reading clubs, and book talks, as well as arts and crafts programs and other special events, all designed for children. This young adult, as she would be called today, was a teenager in the 1950s. Here she is picking up literature from the desk in the teen corner in 1957. Is she interested in possible careers or educational opportunities? Maybe she has a question about dating. According to the reports at that time, dating was a very popular subject for the teenagers. As early as 1903, the need for an intermediate department between children and adults was recognized. Therefore, a special shelf was established near the front main desk, and it was labeled Interesting Books for Young People. Despite the work that the Newark Public Library did in conjunction with the high schools throughout the city, a separate teen corner was not established until 1944. In this photograph, an unidentified librarian assists a patron with a question about what he should read next. Or is she just flirting? Whether the patron is young or old, the librarian's primary responsibility, especially the one at the reference desk, is to assist readers with their informational needs by helping them find the right book, pamphlet, or newspaper article. Referring to this last task in 1889, Frank Hill wrote, "The duty of the attendant at the Bureau of Information is to answer, or try to answer, all questions, to give assistance to readers and students, where possible, to guide the reading of the young, and in general, to see that no one leaves the library in a dissatisfied frame of mind." Regarding services, librarians and their assistants acquire books, pamphlets, and periodicals by purchase or donation. They catalog them by author, title, and subject in an attempt to make them easily retrievable. Today, keyword search is used. They classify them so that similar books on the same subjects are grouped together on the shelves. Another means of making the materials more easily browsable. And they preserve the images, they preserve the items through various direct and indirect means. On the facade of the building are engraved the words philosophy, religion, sociology, philology, science, fine arts, and history. The 7 major areas of nonfiction. Curiously enough, literature is missing. And yet novels, short stories, plays, and poems were all very popular. By the way, well, at that time, in the 1890s, fiction in public libraries was a controversial topic. Why should public funds be spent on such trivial pursuits, some people asked. But in 1892, it was reported that over 80% of all books checked out were in fiction. Between 1904 and 1939, the library published a guide to fiction. There was a debate on whether this was published in 7 or 8 editions, but it was entitled 1,000 of the Best Novels. In the introduction to the first edition, John Cotton Dana stated, "Novels must be praised. They belong with the dramas and the poems among the good things which make our heritage, which unite men and women by community of thought and feeling, and which make it a joy to have the art of reading." Since the very beginning, the Newark Public Library has developed special collections on special topics. The business branch specialized in city and trade directories, investment, financial, and tax information, and other books, pamphlets, and magazines on accounting, marketing, personnel management, real estate, and related topics. It opened in 1904, and it was the first of its kind in the country. It was originally located on Academy Street in downtown Newark. In 1927, it acquired its own 3-story building on Commerce Street. It served businessmen, professionals, clerks, and workers, men and women in the beginning, middle, or end of their careers. It closed in 1997. Materials relating to New Jersey have been collected since the library's founding in 1889, but not until 1929 were the materials organized in a distinct collection. This special collection included books, pamphlets, and periodicals, directories, manuscripts, and government documents, maps, and photographs. In 1951, it acquired its own room. Several individuals have managed the New Jersey collection, including Miriam Studley on the left and Charles Cummings on the right, both of whom wrote extensively about Newark's history in local newspapers. Studley's articles were entitled When Newark Was Younger, and they were published in the Newark Evening News from April 1949 to May 1950. Cummings had a long-running series of articles known as Knowing Newark in the local newspaper, the Star-Ledger. The first exhibition of art books was held in 1893 in the West Park Street building when Frank Hill was librarian. It was recorded that 2,000 people attended this exhibition. His successor, John Comdana, created a separate art department in 1907. Books on artists and artistic movements, as well as manuals on paints, colors, and techniques were all included. Later, musical scores and books on music and musicians were incorporated. By 1928, the art and music department included 13,000 items. It became the State Center for Art Research in 1972 and for Music Research in 1978. Today, the Special Collections Division includes etchings from old masters, prints from modern artists, woodcuts from Japan, and other printed materials from other countries, cultures, and traditions. The photograph on the left is of a woman looking through the picture collection, and that was an amazing assemblage of prints and photographs on all types of topics. On the right is a photograph of a group of friends listening to records in the soundproof booth. As the demography of the city changed, so too did the outreach focus of the Newark Public Library. In 1989, the library established the African American Room, and in the same room, the Sala Hispano-America was opened. The African American Room contains a collection that is principally used for providing cross-disciplinary access to materials about African American life, history, and culture. Titles on current issues, classics from the 19th and 20th centuries, contemporary literature from the 21st century are all included, along with services such as readers advisory, exhibitions, and programs. It was renamed in 1991 after longtime librarian James Brown after his premature death. The Sala Hispano-Americana was established as the largest Spanish language resource in the state, and it has a special emphasis on Central America, South America, and the Caribbean. Since its inception, it has served as a valuable educational, informational, and cultural resource for immigrants and residents interested in Latin American cultures. Over the years, the collection has grown from about 5,000 books to 30,000 today. The latest addition to these special collections is the Philip Roth Personal Library in 2021, but I won't go into that. You have to get the book. Along the way, the library expanded beyond its walls to include several delivery stations and many branches at different times and different places throughout the city. As early as 1891, the librarian Frank Hill wanted to make sure that the people of Newark had access to library materials in the easiest way possible. And so he established 9 delivery stations throughout the city. The first formal branch of the library, known as Branch 1, opened in 1904 in rented space on Academy Street, and other branches are opened in Roseville, Springfield, and Ironbound neighborhoods in 1907. But all of these closed during World War I due to financial constraints. This is a photograph of branch 7, which was located in an advantageous corner in the basement of the Bamberg department store. In the 1920s, the city of Newark agreed with the Board of Trustees that the Newark Public Library needed city-built, city-owned branches. And so between 1923 and 1930, 7 buildings were constructed in the Springfield, Van Buren, Roseville, Clinton, Vailsburg, Wickway, and North End neighborhoods. The Springfield branch was the first city-built, city-owned branch, and it opened in March 1923. It was a modest 2-story building of cream brick in a modified colonial style. It had a book collection of over 20,000 volumes in fiction and nonfiction. It was staffed by 6 full-time assistants and 1 janitor. Its floor plan contained a workroom and staff room, as well as a large spacious room for adults on the 1st floor. And on the 2nd floor, that was entirely devoted to children's services. And in each branch, the children had a discrete staircase devoted to themselves to get up to their own room. In this chapter on the branches, I tried to discuss the changing demography of the neighborhoods, which could be the subject of an entire book. But I'm a historian and not a sociologist. But in any case, in these 2 photographs, these 2 hint at the activities that the Newark Public Library has always provided to its readers and its branches. On the left is a photograph of story hour at the Springfield branch. And on the right is one of a mother and her son showing off his certificate for the summer reading challenge at the Branch Brook branch. In conclusion, the legacy that has maintained the Newark Public Library for over a century and a third has consisted of dedicated staff who provide excellent service and inspiring programs based on unique collections with strong community support. As the current director, Christian Zabriskie, said, shortly after he arrived in Newark, I find something astonishing about the Newark Public Library every day. Our dedicated and innovative staff engage with the public so deeply. Our collections and materials are so unique, and our facilities offer so much welcome and comfort to people throughout the city of Newark. Thank you.
Thank you, William. Are there any questions from anyone? Comments, questions?
Hi, first, thank you so much for taking a look at the staff and not just top. I know it's not easy, but it is appreciated. And then in your book, you reference a women's reading room. And so you have young adults, you have adults. Was there any segregation or any significance to a women's reading room?
This was in the West Park Street building in the 1890s, and I think there was just this sense that some of the women did not want to be in the same room with the men, and or maybe there was this prudishness about where women.
But they could read the same books.
They could read the same books, absolutely. They could read the same books. There was no.
To research and write this book.
Collection for a year and a half. And so that gave me a lot of knowledge about the library and the materials that are available, especially the photographs. But from the time, and plus one of the things that I really wanted to emphasize was, this is kind of a salute to the staff of the public library and to the many people that I work with. So I had many lunch dates with people who told me stories about this person or that. The time that I got the contract with the press to the time I submitted the manuscript was about 8 or 9 months.
So again, let me add my congratulations in putting this all together. It's very exciting. I guess 2 questions, and forgive me since we just bought the book tonight, so we haven't had a chance to look at everything that's there. I was wondering if you included bookmobile, which I remember as a kid, and also the activities of the different friends of the libraries, groups in terms of the library.
So the bookmobile, yes, I included the very first bookmobile from the 1930s. There's a series of really wonderful photographs, but I had only picked one. And then I picked another from the bookmobile from the 1950s. Plus in the 1970s, they had these little vans. And so I have 2 nice images of the vans. That one was devoted to outreach to the Spanish-speaking communities. So that was kind of fun. I did try to include photographs of various programs that are done here at the library, sponsored by friends groups or whatever. But I'm afraid I did not focus solely on the friends groups, and that was probably.
So much you can do.
Yes, there's always, yes, that's right.
William, are there any pictures that you wish were in the picture collection? Yeah, the one thing which I don't see, I hadn't had a chance to look at the book, I just glanced at it briefly, and you didn't present tonight, but some of the very crowded situations. So there were times when extra tables were set up in the 60s, right in this area, because so many almost every college student the semester at that time didn't end in December, and they all had huge term papers to write when they came home from Christmas, and we had tubes over here in the corner, and they would fill out these request lists for periodicals, which had them looking for hours to paper indexes, and then the tube would shoot downstairs when we had a bunch of teenage boys with old pages, and they would run around the basement. Put things on a little elevator. The elevator's still there, it's not working. And then this material would come up. But there were times of, and then the reference desk, the general reference, or actually Andy's, when I started there in the early 70s, was just packed with students. Just, maybe the high schools, especially during African American History Month, were given lists of questions. Like each student was working on a list of 20 questions, and they all had to get the answer and write the source. There's no way they were going to find this themselves. Right. The librarians were around like crazy.
So yes, in answer to your question, yes, there are lots and lots of photographs that I just did not include, and many of them are photographs of the reading rooms. Photographs of programs, and they all show that the audiences. Photographs, I've included a lot of photographs of programs in the branches with loads of audiences, packed people. I was going to mention, talking about the teen corner, the first year that high school swing band put on a concert in that room, which was a small room, and yet 300 people, 300 high school students crammed into that room to hear this thing. I never did find a photograph of it, but I wish I had. That would have been something to see.
do this program and I just like to make once again that you, when you talk about the art department, you do mention Phil Lane. He was so, you know.
Yes, that's true.
Back in the days, down in Arcadia, there was 40 years ago, when a child in the university, they got, well, he had this.
Yes, there were books in Lithuanian, Russian, German, Yiddish, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, you name it, they probably had a book in it. So yes, and he was very, and it wasn't just John Dana, I think this was part of Frank Hill's mission too, as early as the 1890s. Newark at the time, of course, was a city of immigrants. Over 50% of the population was from South, Central, or Eastern Europe. And they were either first or second generation Americans.
Thanks, William. It's really wonderful presentation, and it's a great library. It always has been really an outstanding one. However, there's really no history that doesn't have any attention in it. You know, yours has been a very upbeat presentation. And I wondered if you could say a few words about Beatrice Windsor, because she was the most distinguished woman director the library ever had. And memory serves, she resigned her position as director at a certain point.
So Beatrice Windsor is, of course, this outstanding woman leader. She began here at the library as the German language catalog, believe it or not. She had grown up in Germany, where her father was a journalist and a diplomat. And she immediately, her administrative skills, Frank Hill hired her as the assistant librarian. So she was his assistant librarian, and then she was Dana's assistant librarian. And then when Dana died in 1921, she became the director of the library and the director of the museum, by the way. She was known for running a very tight ship. She was very strict. She very sarcastic in her memos, and as the years grew on, there was a new board of trustees that were getting complaints from the staff about her high-handed approach to managing the staff, and they started to interfere with her management of personnel. So that is when she, you know, I'm the director, I'm in charge of these things. That is my role. That's not your role as a trustee. And she resigned, and she did not go quietly. She published an editorial in the newspapers. She was interviewed here and there. Professional journals in librarianship took up her cause. So this is a distinct disservice to the library. But in any case, so that was an attention. I have another, just talking about fiction. That has always been a controversial topic. What do you include? What do you not include? Frank Hill got in trouble in the 1890s for including Sappho by Alfonso Daudet, and he refused to take it out of the library. He said that why should this book, which is so popular, be withdrawn from the public library when you can buy copies of it on the streets? So that stayed in the library. John Cotton Dane, of course, during World War I, refused to take out German language books or books dealing with German history or German culture. And he got in trouble with a group of vigilantes. So yes, there are these controversies, and I think I kind of hint at them here and there in the book, but it is true that this was supposed to be, I made it upbeat.
Thank you, William, this was a great presentation. So we want to let everybody go, well, let's give them a round. We wanted to let people know that there are books for sale tonight in the back, the Source of Knowledge bookstore. And William will be signing books. He'll be sitting at the table back here. And so you're welcome to buy a book and have William sign it tonight. Thank you for everyone. Thank you to everyone who showed up tonight.